Good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of Burnside Council, being August the 24th, 2021, opening at 7 p.m. We are still seated according to COVID restrictions in the chamber and wearing masks, of course, and you're welcome to join us in the chamber foyer if you wish to attend, but you of course can watch from home. You notice we're all wearing masks. If you do intend to attend a meeting, then masks must be worn in the gallery. Please stand for the acknowledgements. We acknowledge that the land we meet on today is the traditional land of the Kaurna people and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the original custodians of the Adelaide region and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still important to the Kaurna people today. We also pay respect to the cultural authority of Aboriginal people visiting and attending from other areas of South Australia and Australia. On behalf of the City of Burnside, I gratefully acknowledge and pay respect to those who have sacrificed their lives for this country and its people. Finally, we seek understanding and guidance in our debate as we make decisions that will impact on the lives of all who reside, study, work in, or visit the City of Burnside. Grant us wisdom as we serve our community. Please be seated. In the case of an emergency, an alarm will sound, then please follow the directions of the staff. I remind you that all council meetings are live streamed through the website and a copy of the agenda is available by downloading it as well. Members, please raise your hand to indicate that you wish to speak and use your microphones when speaking. And I'll just remind you, you can take your mask off when you wish to speak. Yes, Councillor Lemon.
I think there's someone knocking on the front door.
Oh, I can't get in. That's probably Alan Ward. Thank you, Councillor Lemon. I was wondering where he was and I did need to use my key to get in tonight. Or my pass, I should say.
No one there? There was?
Yeah, there is. But sometimes it's a strange at the door. All right. As I said... Oh, sorry, Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Mayor. Could I just ask a question of the CEO, the administration? We got 2 hard copies of agenda papers, and I just wanted to clarify to make sure I've got the right ones, that we replace the first section and maintain the confidential section. I don't know if other people got the same.
Through Madam Mayor, I might just get Mr Cant just to describe that to us.
He's in the corridor at the moment.
Oh, sorry, Mr Cooper.
I just want to make sure I've got the most accurate papers.
Certainly, through the Mayor, the first section of the agenda should be replaced with the second one that came out, and that should be added to the second part, which was the confidential section.
I'll just go through that again. Members, please raise your hand when you indicate you wish to speak and use your microphones when speaking. And don't forget, you can take your mask off while you are speaking, but the rest of the time, please keep it on. And make sure you turn off your mobile phones or place them on silent during the meeting, and turn your microphones off when you finish speaking. Just a reminder about the 3-minute speaking time and only one question at a time. To everyone present in the chamber and foyer, please be respectful of each other and their opinions during these debates. It's important that all views of the elected members are heard before any decisions are made. Right. We don't have any apologies I'm aware of. No leave of absence. Declaration of interest. Does anyone wish to declare an interest? Councillor Davey.
Thank you. In respect of the Burnside Hospital matter, I have an interest but not a conflict, as I'm a consumer member of the Quality Committee of the hospital. Right. But it's got nothing to do with the board or anything like that. I just want to declare that.
Perceived conflict.
Thank you.
All right, confirmation of minutes. I'm looking for a mover. Councillor Pickett, thank you. Seconded, Councillor Turnbull. All those in favour? Carried. There is no adjourned business. Public question time, there are no questions. Now, and there are no presentations, but there are 2 deputations tonight, and the deputations only one. Yeah, only one has come. And the deputation is when, in this case, relates to the representation review, which allows a community member an opportunity to speak at a council meeting. The amount of time is exactly the same as the time for a deputation. You are, however, not required to ask any questions of that person afterwards. Of course, you can if you wish for clarification, but it's not quite the same as an ordinary as a deputation, where we're probably going to be following it up with debate and discussion, and we need to have some clarification. But don't feel that you need to ask any questions. I certainly will thank him for coming in, but it's not quite the same, but the time is the same, 4 minutes, etc. Okay. I don't think we've actually ever had one of these in our. Yeah, according to the rules of representation review. Yeah, it's item number 10.3. Yeah. So, thanks, Mr. Cant. Yes, Councillor Carbone.
Thank you, Worship. Can I suggest
Yes.
that Mr. Ward sits in Councillor Davis's chair?
That's already going to happen. In Mr. Davis's chair?
Fantastic, okay.
I have prefer to stand, that's fine, okay. Just there then, or, okay. Thank you, Mr. Ward. If you could just, you can take your mask off while you're speaking, of course. If you could just say your name and your suburb, not your full address. And I have explained why you're here tonight. You have 5 minutes with a warning bell at 4. And if there's anyone who needs any clarification, they can ask you a question afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. My name's Alan Albert Ward, RFD ED. I live in Beaumont, and my previous record was that I had 13 and a half years on this council. I do know what makes the show tick a bit, more than the average Joe Blow. In my time in council between May of 93 to November of 06, we reviewed borders and amalgamations, etc., etc. It was a schmozzle in some ways, but in other ways it was a benefit. Some of the small, very small councils were combined, whereas Burnside managed to stay as is, and that's what I'm advocating very much, that you do not allow this council to be amalgamated with anyone else, because we were in the 40 to 50,000 bracket, and that was considered the ideal size for a local council in South Australia. It would be very good if we could avoid any discussion on amalgamations, and there's no need to change any of the structure of the council. You've got 6 wards, 2 councillors in each ward, and of course the mayor. And I think that's the way it should stand. I also have another interest, which is outside of this area, but I'm very, very interested in the amount of traffic that is moving on Portrush Road.
Mr. Ward, we can't have a conversation about that. If you'd like to make a public question at another meeting, it would be appropriate for you to do that. Your opportunity here is really specifically to talk about the representation review.
Well, I said what I wanted to say, but I still think that at some stage or other we should have open meetings for the whole public to come along and talk and express their views. It was something that I applied for during the time I was in council, and I would like to see someone have the guts to put it up.
All right, thank you very much. Is there anyone who wishes to ask Mr. Ward a question about the representation review? If there is none, I'll thank you. Oh, no, it wasn't a hand. Sorry, I thought I saw a hand out the side of my eye. Thank you very much, Mr. Ward, for coming in and addressing us. Yeah. And we will take on board your comments.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And I would like my comments to be made as here too as well. Thank you.
Now, there was supposed to be another representor, but appears that that person, unless there's someone at the door out there wanting to get in, that we've only got the one. So we'll move through now to reports, and I will seek those who wish to withdraw them for debate, starting with 11.1, the appointment of independent members. Councillor Lemon. Kensington Gardens Reserve co-name. Councillor Piggott. Curbside waste management policy. Councillor Carbone. Footpath policy. Councillor Davey. Finance month end report. If there is no one wishing, then Councillor Cornish, you're moving. Councillor Hughes is seconding. All those in favour? Carried. Against? Carried. Highbury Landfill Authority. I have no one withdrawing, so I seek a mover. Thank you, Councillor Cornish. Seconded, Councillor Turnbull. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Chief Executive's report. Councillor Davey. Mayor's activity report. I seek a mover. Councillor Hughes, thank you. Councillor Turnbull, seconded. All those in favour? Carried. Endorsement of the appointment to the Burnside War Memorial Hospital Board of Directors. Councillor Davey, you wish to withdraw that? Right, so we'll go back to the first one, 11.1, which is Councillor Lemon.
Thank you. I recommend the officer's recommendation to you, and I hope you support it. I pulled this because I was on the interviewing panel, and I'd like to assure members that the process was fair and it was thorough, and we chose the right people that were the applicants and shortlisted applicants in that, and I'm really pleased with that decision, so I do hope you support it.
Do I seek a seconder? Councillor Dawes, wish to speak? No. You'll hold off and, okay. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? I'm going to take this off while Anyone else who wishes to speak on this matter? All right, Councillor Dawes, it'll have to be now or never? Never. All right, thank you. All right, I'll put the motion, sorry, I'll go back to Councillor Lemon. All right, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. And congratulations to those 3 people who were appointed. Councillor Piggott, you have the next one, which is the Kensington Gardens Reserve co-name.
Yes, look, I move in accordance with the recommendation. I really only pulled this because I felt it was worthy of pulling. Worthy, probably it did, rather than just roll through on us all voting for it, and I assume it will be supported. I certainly asked that way. This is the second one of these we've had in recent times. It is a step in the right direction. We're obviously doing the work in terms of getting it right from a Kaurna people point of view, and I feel that this initiative around Kensington Gardens Reserve is very positive and will be greeted accordingly by its users, who are significant and many. And so I, yes, seek your support.
Thank you, Councillor Piggott. Councillor Hubel, you wish to second? And do you wish to speak?
Yes, Your Worship. Don't wish to speak at the moment.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this? Councillor Dawes?
Yes, I just wondering if administration could just tell us the pronunciation. I would say Whammer, but I just want to make sure that I've got it right. Can someone help me there?
Through Madam Mayor, I'll refer that to Mr. Cant.
Through Your Worship, the Scottish guy will try and pronounce it. No, that is correct. Whammer is the correct pronunciation.
Got it right so that I can copy you tomorrow when I talk about it in the highlights. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Yes, I support the motion. I just had a query about the Reconciliation Action Plan and what progress what stage that's at, and when that will be coming to council. Thanks.
Sure. Through Madam Mayor, if I can refer that to Ms Macaulay.
Through the Mayor, the Reconciliation Action Plans is going through the final stages of consultation now internally, and my understanding is that that's going to be available in about the next month, but I will confirm that date with you.
Councillor Cornish.
Thank you, Worship. Just thought I'd let everyone know that the organisation that helps the administration, the Kurawinin Kampathini, I have not said that correctly, but their website actually has, you can actually listen to the words being pronounced. So if you do have some difficulty, that website is really, really good to actually hear them said. Just a thought.
I don't have anyone else with their hand up, so I'll go back to Councillor Pickett.
Not much more to say, but really just on the pronunciation, you might notice that I moved that motion without actually using the words themselves through lack of confidence. Pathetic, I admit, but it would be good, I think, when we go public on these, is to have sort of certainly the information that Peter just gave us, but also signage and stuff just to make that sort of pretty obvious to people from the off, because I think that'll make a big difference to it. So, thank you.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Right, the next one is the curbside waste management policy. That's Councillor Cubbo.
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to move in accordance with the officer's recommendation, and I just thought I'd share some updates with the council. Now, we showed true leadership over this issue a short time ago, and we stood firm that it was the right way to go and the fair way to go for the whole of Burnside, especially those who live in apartment buildings, which of course is a growing market. And I just thought I'd pull this because I was overwhelmed with a couple of phone calls I've received since that time from other councils who have dozens, if not many, many more apartment buildings in their council areas. And they were still operating under the old system. And so I found it quite humbling that councils who have many apartment buildings were seeking the advice from a council that had only a few. So I know we show leadership in many ways in this council, especially in the environment space, but I was delighted that we are now, I think, known around South Australia as showing leadership in an area that we probably wouldn't have shown leadership in, and that is with waste collection in apartment buildings. So I just wanted to share that with the council. It was a bumpy road. It almost didn't happen, but we got there, and that's something we can hang our hat on.
Excellent. Seconded by Councillor Davey.
Thank you. Yes, I endorse those comments. I think the key to this is that we've moved from just our household waste removal to a bit more sophisticated apartments and those sort of organisations and residences. And we've also included our lease facilities. So we've moved away from just domestic premises and those definitions to include what are they called? Lessees of council facilities, because they'd sort of fallen through the cracks. So it's good that their waste collection is being supported and they're being encouraged, especially in the recycling aspect. So I commend this to you.
I haven't seen any other hands up. So I shall go back to Councillor Carbone. Do you wish to speak again? All right. Then I shall put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. The next one is footpath policy. Councillor Davey, page 47.
Thank you. I'll move in accordance with the recommendation. I don't have any comments. Thanks.
Seconder, please. Councillor Cornish, do you wish to say anything? Right, then you have nothing else to say. Oh, sorry, Councillor Hughes? getting ready to vote? All right. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. The next one is the Highbury, no, it is the Chief Executive's report, and that's Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Worship. I just had a couple of questions in relation to page 94, 17.8. Met with the Chair and members from the Residents Association. I'm not aware of a Residents Association. Is that a Burnside Residents Association?
Through Madam Mayor, it's actually, I should have put a clearer name there. It's the East Residents Association, just recently formed, and the acting chair and a few of the members took the opportunity to introduce themselves to the Mayor and I. Pleased to say it's a very positively focused organisation, and I understand they've now formally appointed their chair and secretary, and in fact they've asked to have a brief chat with me, I think later next week, and I think their broad concern is about preserving the heritage. It's Rose Park, Dulwich and Toorak Gardens, and that's one of the broad umbrellas. And so I've got to say, to this point, it's been a very positive experience.
You had another question, you said? Oh, nobody else has got their hand up, so.
Thanks. Just in relation to paragraph 18 on page 95, the staff, are all these positions, I mean, two of them are being recruited for parental leave coverage. Are all of these vacant, currently vacant, and were they staffed and have the staff left? And are we definitely recruiting? So if I could just have a bit of clarification, please.
Yeah, through Madam Mayor, I might refer that to Mr Cooper, just to give us the summary.
Thank you, through the Mayor. If we just run through the positions that are there, that might be the easiest thing to do. So, Customer Experience Representative, as it says, is maternity leave. The Compliance Officer Development is being recruited. In fact, the offer letter went out today. Accounts Payable Officer, again, that one has been firmed up and filled. So that one's... No, it's an existing position. The member of staff resigned, so it's a full-time ongoing position that's just been filled. The administration officer... Oh, yeah. Apologies, that's at the depot, and that one's been filled. Assets and System Accountant, there's some backfill arrangements there for our Group Manager maternity leave, and that one is at the back of the chain, as it were. So we've currently not filled that one, but we're keeping our options open to see whether that one's needed. Team Member Civil Maintenance, Barry, refer that to you, please.
Through your worship, they are very recent resignations, and we are currently assessing our requirements with a view to make a recommendation to recruit accordingly.
Okay, and the last one, the Community Centres Coordinator, that role has gone out today for advertisement.
Right, I seek a seconder. Councillor Hughes, do you wish to speak? Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor Dawes.
Yes, just a question of the CEO. In paragraph 31, we talk about an update to members. Can I get an idea of timeline there? Yeah, I think it will be useful to know that prior to our motions of notice tonight.
Certainly. Through Madam Mayor, if I can refer that to Mr Cooper. Oh, yeah, they're sharing it.
Through the Mayor, the timeline for that one is October.
Right, thank you. there any further questions or comments to be made? Otherwise, I'll go back to Councillor Davey.
Thank you. No further comments, other than to say thank you for including all the lists. It's really handy to have the future workshops in there, and the list of the future agenda reports, so we know what's coming. So, very good organisation, very grateful for those.
Right, I shall put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Endorsement of the appointment of Burnside Hospital Board of Directors. Councillor Davey.
Thank you. I'm moving in accordance with the recommendation from the staff. This is all self-explanatory, and the appointment of Dr. Lino Scopacasa is actually a reappointment. He was on the board up until about 3 years ago, so I think it's an excellent appointment and hope that people will endorse that for continuation of service on the board.
And very necessary. Councillor Cornish, you're seconding? Yes. All right, do you speak? Councillor Henty, you had your hand up? Did you want to speak though? No. Okay. So anyone else who wishes to speak? All right, Councillor Cornish, I'm back to you. No, you don't wish to speak then? All right, so failing anyone else wishing to speak, Councillor David, do you wish to speak again? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Right. Now, next are our questions on notice. And you should have received this afternoon by email and a hard copy on your table tonight for the two from Councillor Piggott and from Councillor Davey. Motions on notice. Some additional information was placed on your table as well this evening. And the first one is Councillor Henschke. Page 132, motion 13.1.
Can we have it scrolled up so I can read it? Can we have it scrolled up so I can read it? Because I just
Could you just scroll the screen up, please?
Oh, thank you.
So it's all there.
Yeah.
That's all right. Just so it's all on the screen. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I, Councillor Henschke, move that we write to the Minister for Planning, the Honourable Vicki Chapman MP, to request that a late submission be received and considered in relation to the Minister's current miscellaneous technical enhancement code amendment, and requests that the following amendments be made to the Planning and Design Code. 1.1, within the City of Burnside at least, all parts of the established neighbourhood zone that were part of the historic (conservation) zone in the development plan be renamed to the historic area zone or similar. And 1.2, that policies be introduced into the Planning and Design Code in order to provide specific guidance in relation to respite care facilities in neighbourhood zones and the new historic area zone. The policies should seek to limit the size of each facility, guard against proliferation, and require ample off-street parking for staff, and include other controls designed to protect the residential amenity for residents within the relevant area. When people buy into a residential area in one of South Australia's most expensive tree-lined streets with detached single-storey villas and bungalows, they do so because it's zoned residential. This is even more true when it's a heritage conservation zone with large family, stable family population. The state government moved to dilute this by referring to a heritage zone as an established neighbourhood zone is linguistic engineering, designed to water down the protection residents expect from state and local planning system, the state and local planning system. This council must reject this terminology. An historic conservation area is not an established neighbourhood zone. It may be, but it's not by definition. People pay the prices they do in historic areas in Burnside because they believe they're buying into a protected heritage area. An example of the failure of this new planning system has just happened to my constituents in the Rose Park Toorak Gardens ward. The local minister of religion decided to move out of their home and successfully applied to have it converted to a respite centre. It came as a shock to the locals in Alexandra Avenue this month. Locals who pay high rates. Rates that pay for the salaries of the administration. Administration, they thought, is there to protect ratepayers' interests. They don't expect in an area described as residential that an aged care facility that's non-complying, or a respite care facility, or a childcare centre, or a drug and alcohol treatment house, or palliative care home, or women's refuge will be approved without notification and not going to the council assessment panel with no appeal rights. Late afternoon on a Friday, the land change of land use was approved by the administration. Let's look at the facts. When people reach the level of frailty where they need respite care, they're usually in the final stages of life. They require not just specialist nursing staff, they also need cleaning staff, they need meals prepared, delivered, they may also need a doctor or an ambulance. If 4 or 5 people are cared for in the home, they will need at least 4 direct care staff and additional contractors to look after their needs. If you have 2 or 3 such homes next to each other in a cluster, you'll soon have dozens of cars going in and out on a nightly, daily and weekly basis. For state government and council, the planning system has allowed this to happen without consulting the residents or even creating a special zone. Is irresponsible. The organisation that runs this respite facility is not for profit, but they sell a service. So this property is no longer a home, it is a business. It's business in a residential street adjacent to state and local heritage sites. The people who bought in this area should be able to live in the tranquility they expected in a residential street. Another local church might decide... Another local church might decide it wants to turn its minister's house into a rehab centre. What's to stop to change this being approved? Let's learn from our mistakes. The residents I represent
Councillor, you need to
want
stop.
this recorded. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Davey, you wish to second it?
Thank you. Yes, I'm happy to second
And you
that.
wish to speak?
Not at the moment, thanks.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor Turnbull.
I was really hoping that this motion wouldn't get up. I don't understand why the residents in this zone should feel so entitled that they want to protect this residential amenity for residents within the relevant area. It's a former historic conservation zone, and why should it matter that the residents of this street should complain about a respite care facility of 4 aged care recipients and 4 carers beggars belief? If you read the weekend papers, you'll note that a woman living near a respite care facility for teenage girls has been sworn at, threatened, abused on a daily basis. Does she deserve to live in tranquility too? I think she does. So the patients and the carers in the Manse and Alexandra Avenue are certainly not in this category. Wouldn't it be great if the nearby residents showed compassion and kindness and actually welcomed their new neighbours? I'm appalled by this NIMBY motion, and I hope that those with a conscience vote it down. Thank you.
Councillor Piggott.
Let's ask a question, or maybe 2. See how we go, I guess. I'd just like, could someone fill me in? This would be asking us to put a late submission in beyond a process that's already complete. Am I reading that right? The historic area zone is not a zone that currently exists in the planning system. I'm playing catch up here. Obviously, I'm not that strong on the current planning system.
No, that's okay. Through Madam Mayor, might get Mr Cooper just to respond to that one, please.
I was just going to say it's a very good question to ask, Councillor Piggott, because others that sit around the table probably in the same position.
Thank you. Through the Mayor, I think there were 2 questions there. There is a current ministerial code amendment underway, but it's not in itself isn't complete. The feedback process is, but this motion's about just accepting a late submission. And secondly, I've lost it now. The historic zone is not an existing zone. The motion calls for it to be created. So the zone that was formerly the historic conservation zone is now the established neighbourhood zone with a historic overlay, but it's an established neighbourhood zone. So the motion calls for it to be changed from established neighbourhood to the heritage zone.
If there's no objection from the rest of the group,
Do I get 2 now?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, just so thank you. So so the established neighbourhood zone that's talking about, what are the limits to a commercial operation without any, without speaking to the, yeah, thank you, consultation, or at least informing of the neighbours? What is the limit of what could happen under the current planning control in an established neighbourhood zone?
So through the Mayor, there has been a shift from the previous development plan to the current code.
Sorry, would you mind holding the microphone a little closer? It's hard to hear over here.
Through the Mayor, excuse me, there has been a shift from the previous development plan and the historic conservation zone to the P&D code with the new established neighbourhood zone. So, for example, in that previous development plan, a number of things were non-complying in the old language, including things like shops and even nursing homes and offices and consulting rooms. Under the new code, the equivalent term is restricted, but none of those land uses are restricted, which means they're performance assessed, which is the old merit applications. And going to the heart of the question, many of these non-residential commercial uses, such as shops, have a quantitative limit of 100 square metres, so up to 100 square metres. A shop, for example, is something that is not notified, but beyond that possibly would be.
Are there any other questions, or does anyone wish to speak? Councillor Lemon.
Thank you. I had my hand up a while ago. Yes, I'll speak to this motion. In terms of heritage conservation zones, that debate was lost 2 years ago. That debate was lost when the Planning and Design Code was being consulted. And that would have been a good 2 years ago. There were people that actually marched in the streets with placards. We did that. This council, and me personally, put up a lot of information to the consultation processes, and the whole heritage conservation zone stuff was ditched, and what we're doing now is trying to fan a dead fire, and I just think it's a waste of our staff time and a waste of our time. So that's the first thing I'd say about this motion. The second thing I'd say about this motion is I think it's very important that the people, the 12 people, the 13 people sitting in this room making decisions on Burnside's behalf understand what Respite Care is. Respite Care isn't an aged care facility, and Respite Care isn't a drug and alcohol facility. A Respite Care is where somebody like Anna Marie Smith's carers could take her overnight to send her for the day while they were able to go and do things like shop or have lunch or have some time off. So Respite Care is about providing a safe, caring environment for people that are usually cared for by their families, always by their families. And in Burnside, there are many, many families that look after elderly relations, disabled children, spouses that might be at sick, and this is a place that they can go, usually for the day, very rarely overnight, to give that person or people, carers, some respite from what is quite often a very harrowing experience for families. And what we're saying here is, well, let's not get rid of the residential amenity. From people where the words inclusivity, vulnerability, affordable housing and caring communities, those words often roll off those same tongues, and I am gobsmacked that this motion is before us tonight. I shall not be voting for it.
Looking for hands, or anyone else who wishes, Councillor Davey?
I haven't spoken.
She seconded the motion, but she only asked a question, she didn't speak.
Thank you. I'm a bit gobsmacked. The reason I seconded the motion was to allow some debate on this tonight. Yes, we have had this debate about historic conservation zones, and it was lost, unfortunately. That doesn't really mean we can't protest and write again about it. But I think the real issue is that the neighbourhoods have been dealt out of having any comment, in spite of or whatever, the merits of having respite care or any other sort of, and the validity of respite care and the value of it. It's the fact here that, as I see it, is that people have been dealt out of being able to provide comment and have any say in their neighbourhood and the type of planning and design and development in their neighbourhood. I think we all know that, and I think that's what concerns me about this whole new code. That's why I've moved my motion, which will follow this, is there is still a lot of confusion. It's not clear what we can provide input to and how we can lobby to perhaps change that or modify our systems to support that, provide more information and provide more capacity for people in the neighbourhood to have a say. So that's my reason for supporting this tonight. I think we should keep protesting because I think this is a very undemocratic planning and design code. The bottom line is.
Councillor Dawes.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just going back to earlier in the meeting, I asked about this update that we're going to receive. And it's going to compare our position with the final code, and it's going to indicate how the impacts will be monitored. Now, I believe we just got a little bit the wrong way around. I remember Councillor Lemon said last meeting that we should have a workshop following receipt of that update to understand better what the issues are. So I would be leaning that way. I understand what Councillor Henschke is saying here, and I think it's mainly, I think the real issue, and Councillor Davey hit the nail on the head here, the real issue is notification to residents. Now, what we've received tonight about change in use, the staff believe that it was sufficiently minor. Now, in a previous historic zone, you know, should that have been done, yes or no? I don't know the answer to that. But what I would love to see happen is for us first to have a workshop to understand the intricacies of this new code. Now, I'm on the CAP this year and I'm learning all the time. And that's why I said last November that there should really be a different member on CAP for each year. So 4 of us would have a better understanding of the planning code. And I still believe that that should be the case. But here, wrong way around, let's receive the update. It's due October. Mr. Cooper has told us that tonight. Once we receive that, we can have a look at it and then follow that with a workshop. So that's the way that I would like to go.
Councillor Carbone.
Thank you, Worship. I'd just like to, thank Councillor Henschke. I think that's probably the most passionate speech from her we've heard so far this term, so well done. I enjoyed it. I suspect, leading on from Councillor Davey about what are the real issues here, and I think notification is probably the big one. But I suspect, and of course it's not my ward, I've got no idea, but I suspect that there may be another little issue bubbling under the surface, which is the whole sort of slippery slope argument, and that is, okay, this is what it is now, what could it be down the track? So, Your Worship, my question is to the CEO, if the church decided to change it to a drug rehab facility, hypothetically, is that an easy process given that they've already got the rooms and the nurses and all that sort of stuff? If they wanted to change it to something perhaps less desirable, what would the steps be?
I'm just going to accept that as you've spoken and you've asked a question, okay?
Through Madam Mayor, I think the key piece of the puzzle here is public notification, and with that change of use proposal you just suggested, that would trigger public notification. So the thin end of the wedge argument for this doesn't really hold, and people shouldn't be worried about that. This is genuinely a low impact activity, which to my mind will be a lower impact than a normal residential property that has a dog or a pet in the backyard.
Right, Councillor Hughes, you had your hand up, and Councillor Davis, do you wish to speak as well?
Yeah. He said it wouldn't trigger.
Sorry, if I mispronounced the word, it would trigger a notification requirement.
Didn't realise that was a clarification. No, it's all clear now to everyone?
Sorry,
Okay.
I just wanted to
Councillor Hughes.
confirm. So the residence was previously used by the parish minister who was operating a professional counselling office anyway. Is that, that's not a residential specifically, that is not a specific residential use either? Was that zoned as like a commercial or other type property anyway?
Through Madam Mayor, I stand corrected, but no, it was simply zoned as a normal residential property, and we've noted that that was an activity that occurred on the site. Is that a fair summary, Mr. Cooper?
She's a priest, so therefore she would be doing counselling, but it would be unpaid counselling generally if a priest was conducting that. So therefore, but there would be people coming, perhaps potentially to her from her house. Yeah.
And through the mayor, it would be the priest's residence as well.
Yeah, look, I'm pretty certain in the near future probably that we will write to the Minister of Planning about the new planning rules. I'm sure, and I suspect also pretty strongly that it'll be, one of the things will be around the fact that there's a lot more you can do these days without actually neighbours knowing about it, let alone having any input into it or any sort of power across it. I'm sure that is something the City of Burnside, on behalf of its residents, will have a crack at. So when we do, we need to be very careful that we get it right, and this is not getting it right in my view. It leaves us open to the fact that it is a NIMBY. Councillor Turnbull had a major crack at it, not unfairly, and I suspect that's what would happen if we did push this in its current form further up. It'd be very much, it's confined to historic area zones. I'd argue, why is it any different to someone living in McGill that someone sets up something next door to them? Why is that a lesser problem than someone in a historic zone? So I think we've got to be really careful, and equally, I'm sure there are issues around historic conservation areas as well that we would like to have better than we currently have, and we need to have a crack at that. But we shouldn't do it in this form. This should not be our leading punch on the new planning system when we talk to the Minister for Planning. It cannot be so narrow and I think almost undefendable, actually. I do think it is slightly insulting. I think it is not surprising the reaction that it has got around the chamber, because I think that would reflect the community when they looked at this story as to whether that was a fair reason to jump up and down having a Respite Care place next door to you. I don't think that is a reason in itself. Having no control over a business coming in and setting up under 100 square metres, or having no knowledge of it until it happens, I think that is something we should take up with the Minister of Planning. I am looking forward to seeing in a more holistic way what this new planning system has done and what things we need to do next to try and influence it going forward. So I won't support it.
Councillor Cornish.
Thank you, Worship. I just have a question, if I can, with 1.2 in terms of how the administration reads neighbourhood zones and the new historic area zone. That's obviously assuming that a new historic area zone gets created, but does neighbourhood zones encompass a lot of zones, and how much percentage of the city of Burnside does neighbourhood zones actually cover in this motion?
Thank you for the question. Through the Mayor, the way that 1.2 is phrased in neighbourhood zones generically, that is taken to mean all neighbourhood zones. So that includes the established neighbourhood zone, but also the general and suburban neighbourhood zones, which together make up most of Burnside. The reference to the historic area zone is a reference to a proposed zone. So the way that's written, the new policies would apply to the new historic area zone if that's successful, but also all the other existing neighbourhood zones across Burnside.
Answer your question? Yes, is it particularly subsequent? Otherwise, I'll let Councillor Davis speak and then I'll come back to you, Councillor Cornish.
So when I very much appreciate the comments of Councillor Turnbull, Councillor Lemon and Councillor Piggott. I don't have a full understanding really of what's proposed here, and I don't understand exactly what the impact would be on residents as a result of this motion, but I thank particularly Councillor Lemon for her elaboration on it. I think that when we write to our ministers and we want to have an impact as a council, we need to juggle two priorities: the messages that we give to our electorate and what do we say to our local residents, and then secondly, how we have a meaningful impact on our planning rules and any rules that the state government or even the federal government is in charge of legislating. I think that Councillor Piggott's approach in terms of looking at holistically in a measured way and thinking about it more strategically in terms of notifications will be far more successful. And I'm cautious of well, let's just write the minister a letter because it can't hurt. I think it devalues our voice when it's not thought through. I could write 100 letters to the minister on behalf of each resident and kind of push the issue forward. But I think we need to take a strategic approach to these things and make sure that our submissions are complete, well thought through, and are really worthy of being accepted. I think that's how we achieve the aims that we want. So apart from me not fully understanding exactly what this is addressing from the other councillors' elaboration tonight, I also just don't think it really passes the sniff test in many ways. I mean, respite care is something that people need. We have an ageing population, particularly in Burnside, and I think the real issue here is about not attacking respite care, but really about the notification of it. And I understand that Councillor Henschke is clearly very passionate about it on behalf of her residents, quite rightly so. But I think we could take a more measured approach to it to try and deliver an outcome in terms of what are the drawbacks of this particular facility, what needs to be changed more specifically, and what are the problems arising from it. I don't really get that from this motion, so perhaps this can form part of our broader input into our broader comments, as Councillor Piggott suggested that we comment in future to state government. So I won't be supporting this motion in its current form, but I also understand the need to advocate for your residents and speak their voice. So I think that's important as well.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Councillor Cornish.
I'm going to try an amendment if I can, just a slight one. With 1.2, so pretty much everything exactly the same apart from 1.2, and just wait until it catches up. Oh, sorry, you can pretty much write 1.2 as well, sorry, so Control Z that. I'm just going to change a few words in that. Provide specific guidance in relation to, sorry, so where it says provide specific guidance in relation to, get rid of respite care facilities and change that to community consultation and change of use. I wonder if that is too contrary to the previous motion, and I leave that to the presiding member to determine.
It is definitely different. Okay.
If I can, then I'll speak against the current motion at the moment. I do understand the sentiment completely. I do understand the opposition against it as well, given that it is a very pointed motion as it stands, specifically directed at Respite Care. And I think what I've heard around the chamber is that it you know, ideally we've got the issue with change of use and notification or community consultation regarding that change of use. It's not to say that in 1.2 that the policies that the state government come up with would still probably allow this residential respite care facility in Alexandra Avenue. You know, the size and scope of it, I'm not quite certain where that actually land with that line in terms of what's too much and what's too little. In terms, I suppose, I'm not as concerned as this is going to be a proliferation. Certainly in our historic conservation zone areas, not everyone can afford a $1.8 million house to put four people in during the day. It makes a very stupid financial decision. However, the church, obviously, that have historical value in these assets and wanting to put them at good use, I can understand why they've made this choice. We've heard from the administration that anything that would be significant, I suppose, in terms of, we've had one example of a rehabilitation facility, that would certainly warrant notification and consultation. So I won't support this motion as it currently stands because I just think it needs to be slightly tweaked, as I sort of tried to do, to sort of spearhead the actual nexus of the consultation, notification and the change of use, because this motion is for the whole of the city. So I do think it's something that we need to look at, and as Councillor Dawes and Councillor Piggott said, perhaps we do that all in one big swoop and we have that big list that we go to the state government with. But that's where I currently sit with it. I understand the sentiment and you know, the decision's been made, but I think we can actually address it maybe more holistically, as Councillor Piggott put it. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? If there is no one else, then I shall go back to Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the healthy debate this evening. The first review of the Planning and Design Code is underway, and on your table tonight you have a call for issues, 1st of July, and you also have the letter from our administration. So I've collaborated with the administration on this motion for days and the community to develop this. It's been tabled at the East Residents Association on Sunday. Vicky Chapman was there. No objections. This is to help the administration. Number of hours that have been spent, the stress of the community. You know, we need to help the community. We need to help the administration, and this is to help the administration. It's asking the minister to. We're writing to the minister, like we have already in the first review. We want to put a late submission in for this little bit extra, please, because we've just had this experience. That's what they're calling us for, calling to us. They want to know how it's going. And we're just letting them know how it's going. We've got an example here. The administration has helped me draft this. They said to me, we need some policies, it will be helpful. It would help us guide our decision making. Yes, notification is an issue, and that's already in our letter to the minister, in our call for issues. We've already told the Minister about notification appeal rights are an issue. And Councillor Piggott says, oh, this is just for, historic area zones. Well, no, Councillor Cornish, thank you, clarified 1.2. It is about neighbourhood zones. And our planning officers said, yes, it's for the whole of the city of Burnside. So now's the time. We've just had an example, fresh in our minds. The first review is about to shut. We're asking for a late submission. We're just going to write a letter. Well, I know we've become a bit emotional about, it's a respite care facility, but look, that's how the residents are, look, we have a respite care facility. Of course we need a respite care facility, but what we don't want is waking up the next morning and finding out there's another one and another one or something else. Too many surprises, and that's why we need policies at the state level so our planning officers can actually implement them. So please, it's been a really, really good debate. It is, it's not NIMBY stuff going on here. We just want to write a letter, as we already have with this recent example. So please support this motion. Thank you.
All those in favour? Against? The motion is lost. Division has been called, so those who are in favour, please stand. It's Councillor Henschke, Councillor Cornish, Councillor Davey, Councillor Carbone. Those against, Councillor Hughes, Piggott, Davis, Lemon. Sorry, I'm going too fast. So we've got Councillor Hughes, Piggott, Davis, Lemon, Turnbull, Dawes, Jones and Hubel. Thank you. Have our second motion on notice, and also relates to the new planning and design code. Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll read my motion. Mine is that Council 1 be presented with a report by the end of November which demonstrates the following system in relation to the new planning legislation. 1, how the administration has developed and introduced systems to implement the new planning and design code in relation to development applications and approvals for building works, changes in land use and land division, specifically in relation to planning, building, administration and compliance systems in Burnside. 2, how this system is managed and operates and how it gives consideration to the existing heritage, environment and infrastructure located with and intrinsic to the Burnside community. 3, how best practice systems can be implemented to work with and inform the residential and business community, along with elected members. I'll add, that's fallen out there, elected members, to ensure and maintain confidence in the operation of the planning system in City of Burnside, and hold a workshop for the elected members to demonstrate how the new system is working and recommend any improvements. Thank you. As we all know,
just a quick clarification. When we were talking earlier, officers suggested that we could present in October, and you suggested you were happy with October.
That's right.
I just wondered if you said November when you read out your motion.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Thank you. Yes, be presented. Sorry, I hadn't changed it.
Here to help, Councillor
More
Davey.
than happy to go along with your efficiency. They're so efficient, yeah. It's great. Thank you, Chris Carley. We all know, and we've heard again tonight, there's a lot of concern with the community, within our community, and there's a lack of clarity about the impact and the extent of the changes of land use in our suburbs with the introduction of the new planning system, and the fact that homeowners, businesses and the neighbourhood are not given any notice or information before this happens. So I've looked at this broadly, and I think in terms of our role as a council, we've actually got prescribed functions under the Local Government Act. At Section 6, this talks about a major role of council being to provide and coordinate various public services and facilities, and to develop its community and resources in a socially just and ecologically sustainable manner. Also at Section 7, which is council functions, 7E requires us to manage, develop, protect, restore, enhance and conserve the environment in an ecologically sustainable manner and to improve amenity. So from this I'm saying that while we've got a new planning system imposed on us, we are still a local government authority and we have governance functions around that. So I believe it's our responsibility to ensure we have the best possible governance systems in place to manage one of the most contentious and complex components of our administration, planning and development. There are major concerns being raised with us all the time at the impacts on residential amenity and to a less extent business amenity, our City of Burnside heritage and our environment from these recent changes to the planning system. There's a lack of clarity about the extensive changes, who implements these and makes the decisions about what can be built. And there's also queries that I get constantly about what qualifications do these people have and who checks to see that what has been approved is actually built. So there's major concern at the way this is happening and the fact that homeowners, businesses in the neighbourhood are not given any information or notice before this happens. This means there is loss of local character and heritage and loss of streetscapes across our suburbs. There's increasing size of homes on blocks, loss of trees and overall diminished tree canopy, plus the resultant urban warming from the significant increase in grey cover. So there's also a lot of concern about the extent of damage to council infrastructure with these denser, much more sophisticated homes, which normally a home being built in the past has been a pretty simple matter. It's not now. Someone could be building a home that's $1.5 million. So there's significant impact on our infrastructure that is costing us enormously.
That's your second bell, Councillor Davey.
Thank you. So I hope you'll support this to let us workshop and work through, have a report and work through these issues. Thank you.
Councillor Henschke, you wish to second it?
Yes.
To speak now?
I'll reserve for later, thank you.
Councillor Davis?
My question is just about number one, in terms of how long would it take the administration to compile the report? I imagine you have these systems in place, which would be too hard, but how much of a burden would this be?
Through Anna Mayor, I'll refer that to Mr. Cooper.
Thank you. Through the Mayor, the administration is confident it will be able to produce this information in time for the report for October. So relatively quickly.
Councillor Dawes.
Yeah, just a follow-up question to Councillor Davis. So we're getting the update in October, where we're comparing what we wanted and what we didn't get and so forth. Will this report come at the same time so we can consider them both at the same time? Is that the intention? And then, you know, I'm keen to have this workshop as well to talk it through, but can someone give me an idea of that?
Thank you. Through the Mayor. Yes, the current plans are that the two reports at the moment, they are quite different, although related, would be presented to Council in October, envisaging the workshop to be in early November, subject to workshop diaries. So that's the timing that we're thinking of at the moment.
Councillor Davis.
Oh, yeah.
I'll speak. Well, I'm not averse to this, but by the same token, I don't think it will actually achieve what either of the two motions on notice tonight are seeking to achieve. And I'll tell you a story. When I first got elected into council in 2010, I went on what was then the Development Assessment Panel. And what I found was extraordinary was that how no interest your average person that lives in Burnside has in planning and development law until somebody wants to build something across the road or next door. And then there is massive interest, and it is very localised at a street number in a general sense. When the design code stuff came first, when I was first elected, it was the 30-year plan for Greater Adelaide, and I think we've had 2 iterations of it since then. And people were getting really worried about urban infill. But you know what? Nobody made any submissions. When the new planning thing came in, and there was public consultation and a public charter and a call for community consultation, I actually wrote to it every single time. Very few people made submissions, very few people went to meetings. People are not interested in planning. And this motion is going to bring it back to us. We will still have, till hell freezes over, the same number of residents around one address and one street number that will complain to us, no matter how much we try and inform the public, because if you buttonhole someone on the street in front of their letterbox, they would rather chew their arm off than talk to you about planning law. And escape, my God, is that the time? It's the reality of it. We will always have to answer these questions when people are personally affected. The other thing that I actually came to realise as well is council is also told off for buildings for which we had no authority over. So people will talk about Cedar Woods. How could you have let that happen? Well, we didn't. Well, you let that happen and you let those narrow roads and those car parks are too, but well, it wasn't us. They don't want to know. They want someone to complain to. And if you're the local elected member, you stand there and you nod and you go titch titch, because people don't want to hear that it's not my fault. They don't want to hear that it's not council's fault. They want someone to complain to. So we can have as many workshops as we like. We can have as many info docs as we like. The people that are impacted by something that happens next door are going to complain to us. And maybe what we need is counselling sessions as elected members on how to deal with that.
Thank you, Councillor Lemon. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? You wish to speak now as a seconder, Councillor? All right, Councillor Cornish first then, Councillor Henschke.
I've actually got a question if I can. I similarly put in a motion that was fairly on the lines with this, but it was more in relation into enforcement and best practice. Would you consider 1.3 to encapsulate the enforcement component or the compliance component in this motion?
You'd be happy, but would the mover and seconder be also happy to just add those, allow those to be added?
Like if the administration is happy to include it or thinks that it's considered.
Through Madam Mayor, I'm happy with the interpretation of the operation of the planning system in the city of Burnside does incorporate the compliance and enforcement aspects of building and planning.
So they're already in there, in your...
They will be in the report.
Councillor Henschke.
Glasses every time. Thank you, Mayor. Look, Councillor Lemon's story is interesting, and we know worldwide there are major problems with community engagement programs that deal with policy at the development stage and not at the development application stage. And this is the problem we have here in South Australia. We've shifted, there's been a major change in the way we do planning. it's all been done at this policy level, at state level, for the last 2 years, and community engagement, it doesn't work. I mean, in Alexandra Avenue the other day, people knew that there was an engagement process. We did our best to engage with the community, but it's not until it affects you next door and it's suddenly a surprise, you wake up one morning and go, hell, so they've turned the house next door into a business? Gee, no one told us. And that's the shock, that's the surprise. I do hope, I know that Vicky Chapman has heard the problems in Alexandra Avenue and the call for issues closed on the 13th of August. And we as a council did make some responses to Mr Holden. So look, I just see that this is a healthy piece of work that, you know, I've heard tonight people not really up to speed perhaps, or haven't had experience on the council assessment panel, or don't really understand what's going on. There's a lot to understand. I've spent 2 years very close to this topic, working with the Community Alliance and others. And I've been on the council assessment panel, and I'm no planning expert. It is hard. But I think we do really need to have more information as a chamber and do more workshops so that we are better informed. And whenever there is a chance to provide issues and write to the Minister and the planning members of the Commission, let's do that, because that's all we needed to do tonight. So thank you. Please support this motion. It's the least we can do for our residents. It's a big, big change. Thank you.
Oh, is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Right, then I will go back to Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your input. I'm certainly looking at this as a positive move. I really believe, from my experience, our community are very interested in the outcomes of planning in their community. They mightn't comment at particular times in strategic sense, but they're very interested in their locale and in the broader community. I think we therefore need to ensure that we put in place and promote to our community a system that's open, fair and efficient, and which includes real checks and balances between development, local amenity and the environment, and the compliance issues needed to ensure this. And we need to educate and promote our systems within to our community. So that's the aim of this motion tonight. A workshop will be invaluable once we get all the staff input. The staff do a terrific job dealing with this very complex area, but it will be really helpful if we can fully understand it, how all the new changes affect things, but how we can help put in place systems to support it, educate our community and give them as much input as they can possibly hope for. So I hope you'll support this.
Right, those in favour? Those against? Carried. The urgent or any other business? I'd just like to take the opportunity to comment on, I hope that you have been watching the carbon neutral series online that Council has produced under Barry's directorship. It's up to number 5 that went online tonight, and that one is about the circular economy. And I do commend all 5 of them to you, because it's actually there for the public to see what it is that Council is actually doing to achieve its goal of being carbon neutral by 2030. So if you haven't seen them yourselves, I really do recommend that you look at them. Dr. Phil does the lead introduction, and there's other staff who then also comment on different aspects and different places or areas that they work in. So I just wanted to commend that to you. As I said, number 5 was out tonight. Anyone else have any other business? Otherwise, we will move on into our confidential items. And I seek a mover. Councillor Cornish is always good for this one. To move into confidence. No, you do not have to read it. Absolutely not. So moved by, seconded by Councillor Hughes. Oh, yeah. And all in favour? Against? Carried. Right, so we just give a few moments to, and thank you to all the staff who have been here tonight. Thank you. Go Power.